This video is brought to you by my patrons. Stay tuned until the end or go to patreon.com/JennyGeist to find out how you can join in on supporting my channel. Your feature presentation will now begin in a moment. On March 23, 1997, Warner Bros. Released their first ever batch of DVD films onto store shelves, and a home video monolith was born. What started as a niche, higher quality but higher priced format quickly skyrocketed into the mainstream consciousness throughout the following decade, overtaking the VHS as a dominant form of home release by 2002. The benefits to this new medium were numerous. The quality was better, the format was more compact, you didn't need to rewind after watching, and most importantly, you could fit way more onto a disc than ever before, which is something that studios quickly took full advantage of. Telling consumers to ditch their existing collections for an expensive new setup could have been a hard sell, but including behind-the-scenes documentaries, audio commentaries, deleted scenes, and more, bolstered these products into fully fledged immersive experiences that couldn't be achieved through a mere VHS. You weren't just watching a low-quality scan that you could have rented from your local video store, you were watching things in the best quality widescreen possible. You were hearing what the directors, actors, and designers were thinking with each creative choice, and you were learning how the films that shaped us were shaped by their original creators. But if you were a 6-year-old who didn't care about any of that, you were playing the cheap DVD menu games they threw in on the side. Howdy folks, I'm Jenny Geist, and man, DVD menu games are such a relic of an approach to media that is now practically non-existent. Physical media, while definitely still a thing, has become less and less of a draw ever since streaming took over the entertainment landscape. These days, most families are much more attracted to services like Netflix, Disney+, or YouTube, where content is infinite, cheap, or free respectively, and the remaining physical media buyers are generally collectors or older adults. Sure, there may have been 1.2 billion physical media purchases total in 2021, but there are 1.2 billion monthly Netflix subscribers alone across that same timeframe, dwarfing the DVD and Blu-ray markets by a substantial margin. And since this medium is becoming more and more niche, not only are special features like audio commentaries becoming less common as a whole, but DVD menu games? I could be wrong, but I honestly have my doubts that anything has these at all anymore. It's understandable why, when I think of a form factor that I would want to use to interact with a gaming world, I do not usually think of the squishy arrows and delayed inputs of a remote control. But on the other hand, child me didn't seem to care. I still ate these up, and I know millions of other kids were exactly the same, yet now they are entirely gone in this new era of endless streaming content where these types of extras are rarely included. Don't you just love that the media we consume has become increasingly less personal and more disposable to fulfill an intellectual property quota and stuff a service with as many hours of content as possible regardless of passion or quality? I love that they're making a 3rd Garfield movie, and a 4th Cheaper by the Dozen movie, and a 5th Home Alone movie, and a 6th SpongeBob movie, and a Waterworld Peacock series. What? That one wasn't even successful 20 years ago! Oh god, this is such an old woman yelling at clouds moment. I'm sorry. I bring this all up though because physical media doesn't last forever either, and unlike the movies these discs contain, the original content, quality or not, is going to not exist one day. It's hard enough to get companies to care about the artistic preservation of their main products, nonetheless ancillary and random side creations like these. DVD menu games may be stupid, but they are a rare example of an art form that is guaranteed to become lost media within our lifetimes. Do they deserve that fate? Does our current standard of media preservation apply to one of the lowest rungs of content imaginable? Yes and no, but it's definitely more nuanced than thing good or thing bad, so today I'm going to examine the history, evolution, and content of these games before I make a firm statement either way. Get ready for some hardcore analysis of 20-year-old bonus features with a little bit of a Y2K nostalgia thrown in, because today I'm doing a video essay about DVD menu games. There's a reason I chose to release this one after my Metaverse episode. If you want to hear me go in a communist diatribe, wait till my video about Xenoblade Chronicles. Because of the lack of organized information on this topic, it's actually really hard to figure out where the first ever menu game came from, so I'm just going to start this study in October 2001 with Disney's first ever Platinum Edition DVD, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Specifically, this package contains what quickly became the most common game in the entire medium, the quiz, which in most cases provides quick trivia questions from the movie through some sort of themed framing device. A lot of studios came up with this idea independently and put them into several early DVDs, as when you have a format that allows for video-based menu selection and the playback of certain scenes in a film, adding a quiz is both exceptionally easy and gives studios another bullet point to throw onto the back of the box. This one, despite being the earliest I could find, makes for an actually pretty decent experience, if not partially because of how weird and unique it is. Dopey's Wild Mine Ride sees you taking the role of the titular dwarf as you race through the mines and attempt to save your brethren and break the evil queen's curse, which of course you do through answering trivia questions. It's cute enough, there's some charming early 3D animation of you racing through a CG mine, truly a suitable replacement for the $10 lightning lane you'd be paying at Magic Kingdom. The first question shows you 3 clips and you have to deduce which one is fake, and that's a pretty clever way to reuse assets while still making the experience stand out. But then it starts getting stranger and more specific. The second question requires you to memorize the dwarf's instruments, and I'll be honest, I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid, and even if I had, who on earth knows that? And then the next one isn't even a question, it's just memorizing rocks. And if you fail, the queen crushes you with a cave-in, and it's kinda dark. But also, as it goes on, it gets increasingly silly as well, creating a kinda sudden tonal shift. The Magic Mirror, who hosts this minigame, starts making more and more jokes as the storyline progresses, which is kinda jarring for a character who is 100% serious in the source material.
Only one item will soften the blow. But first, a detail you'll need to know. The color of Dopey's pillow.
Oh, come on. Fuck you, man. I don't even think the people who live at Golden Oak know that.
Sorry, best I could do on short notice.
Then when you get out of the mine, this happens, and it kinda feels like a YTP, and I kind of love that.
Onward to save Snow White.
The spell is alive, and you have wandered into my little trap. Now I am in control, and your destiny lies with me.
Not to go off on a tangent or anything, but it's extremely weird, and honestly a pretty good tone setter for the types of things we're going to be experiencing in this study. Assets from random family films were used in the cheapest possible way, leading to results that are often, intentionally or not, pretty hilarious.
But there's something else that you should know. One wrong answer, and it's back you go.
At the very least, I will give this Snow White one credit for being a memorable and offbeat start to our examination. Most other quiz minigames that came afterwards felt like bare-bones filler meant to justify the format and nothing more. The Shrek DVD, for instance, has a very by-the-numbers quiz with boring questions, no unique animations, and no storyline or reward for winning. There's not much engaging about answering simple questions about a singular movie that you just watched, especially when the target audience might not even know how to read. Perhaps if it quizzed you with behind-the-scenes questions as well, it could at least provide an incentive for school-aged kids to check out the bonus features that they'd usually skip and make the whole thing kinda sorta educational, but I don't think any of them actually did that. The closest I found was in the 2002 live-action Scooby-Doo movie, aka the film that cracked 1,000 eggs if you know you know, which gave you a bonus featurette if you finished the quiz minigame, which is another neat touch. While this one isn't as elaborate as the Snow White one, it at least has another unique framing device by theming itself to a claw machine and giving the aforementioned reward for winning. It also helps that this wasn't the only actual game on here, so it doesn't feel out of place like the dwarf one or lazy like the Shrek one. Except these are located not on the menu itself, but on the CD-ROM portal. Another one of the most common things on family DVDs of the early aughts is CD-ROM activity portals, which you can find by putting your disc into the computer and connecting to the internet. While these technically aren't menu games, they have more in common with early 2000s browser games than they do stuff like the quizzes, they are still relevant for reasons that'll become apparent soon. In this package, we have Parades, where you type in what Scooby is impersonating, Belch and Tune, where you arrange a song with burps, a Broken Link, Scooby Groove-a-Doo, where Fred dances in a simple rhythm minigame, a Broken Link, and my personal favorite, Spooky Smorgasbord, where Scooby assembles a sandwich from falling condiments. If that last one sounds familiar, that's because there was a Lilo & Stitch Flash game on the Disney Channel website with the exact same gameplay that actually came later. If I had a nickel for every time a beloved cartoon cartoon character had a computer game where they made sandwiches out of falling condiments, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't much, but it's weird that it happened twice. To once again set the tone for these types of games, none of these are individually too memorable or impressive, but as a package, they are alright time wasters for a kid that might be into Scooby-Doo. Not being limited by what is possible with video files in a TV remote certainly helps these in the longevity and replayability department. Or at least it would, if most of these still existed, which they do not. Going back to the Shrek DVD, trying to bring up the CD-ROM features just brings up an empty Shrek-themed browser. Good for researching how to make a risotto, but not much else. Then looking at some of the others I've gathered that tout CD-ROM compatibility, The Fast and Furious didn't work. Elf didn't work. Ice Age didn't work. Robots didn't work. Enchanted, which released as late as 2007, didn't work. Also, wasn't this movie supposed to have a song about Bruno? As it turns out, Scooby-Doo is literally the only CD-ROM game portal I could find that's still up in 2022. Go figure. Unfortunately, the discontinuation of Adobe Flash Player in December 2020 has erased a large chunk of these from existence, and unlike their browser game counterparts, most of these don't seem to be backed up anywhere. So remember what I said about these types of games being lost media walking? Well, that's already starting to take place. The clock is ticking, folks. Now that we've covered 2 of the most common types of DVD menu games and bonus features, it does seem that the lot is thoroughly mediocre and not exactly worth revisiting for any other reason beyond nostalgia. Like, CD-ROM games are already mostly gone, and the few that I were able to cover weren't exactly super original or artistic themselves. Going out of your way to preserve these would be like going out of your way to preserve a McDonald's toy. Sure, I guess, but does it really matter? Realistically, no. None of these matter at all, and this is all dumb and frivolous. However, so far I've only played stuff from 2001 to 2002, when the medium was only just becoming mainstream and studios were still filling out what audiences wanted in their home media. Now that the landscape had evolved, however, the games within could evolve as well, and I would argue that 2002, the year that DVDs overtook the VHS, marked a major turning point in said evolution. The DVD releases of Monsters, Inc. and Peter Pan 2: Return to Neverland had the earliest inclusions of the point-and-click adventure game on a DVD. Monsters, Inc. had Peekaboo Boo's Store game, where after Randall breaks apart Boo's door again and hides the pieces within several kids' rooms, you must go from room to room until you find the hidden pieces. The gameplay literally just involves clicking different objects until you look out and find the pieces, but there were new voice clips from Billy Crystal as Mike Wazowski that gave the experience a story and tied everything together.
I'll keep your file in case something else comes up. Maybe you can work with us on a freelance basis. It could lead to something permanent, who knows?
Peter Pan 2 had the Rescue the Lost Boys adventure game with a similar conceit, but this one was in a 3D modeled pirate ship with much more to interact with, including potential hazards such as pirates that could halt your progress at any time. You need to find 5 Lost Boys and 2 treasures throughout this large map, but if you get caught by Hook's crew more than twice, you'll get a game over, and that sends you back to the beginning, meaning the only way to progress beyond pure luck would be to memorize which objects are safe and which are dangerous, then deducing where the remaining secrets are in order to finish the game. It's honestly really difficult, and my sister and I were literally unable to finish this one, so I guess Jane is stuck in prison forever in our copy. At least she doesn't look too bummed about it. So, neither of these were amazing per se. In fact, I would still argue that they are pretty rudimentary and cheap. Again, just look at Jane here. Yet, these did show that the games within the DVD itself could be more than a bland quiz or a copy and pasted Flash game. This is the philosophy that the best of these experiences will take to heart over the next few years, as 2003 to 2007 is the era where DVD menu games started to have some genuine merit. And I know you're all here for Far Far Away Idol, and we're getting to that soon. Let's start this period by looking at the 2005 Platinum Edition release of Disney's Bambi, which contains one of the best DVD menu games of all time. The Forest Adventure is a 30-minute long minigame collection framed together by the change of the seasons, and it's lit. It has adventure, atmosphere, danger, the southern drawl of Friend Al's narration. It's what the kids call Kino, or based, or better than Elden Ring, and if you disagree, you are a maidenless plebeian. Seriously though, the Forest Forest Adventure is genuinely what these types of games should be, because no, it's not something that is going to appeal to adults. It's a collection of 8 minigames strung together by a loose structure with objectives that range from memorizing the order of water droplets to counting how many animals pass by in a time frame. Yet, that's exactly why I think this is a quintessential example of how to make a good DVD menu game, because it fully understands the tastes of its target audience, you know, young children. The stakes are extraordinarily small, as the games are literally framed as fun activities that you, Bambi, are taking part in. They take place in a serene 3D modeled version of the forest from the movie, with plants and critters strewn about, matching the beauty and intensity of the source material quite well. One iconic moment notwithstanding, Bambi is definitely one of the more thinly plotted and fluffy entries in the Disney canon. Thus, it's more likely to be gifted to children on the younger side who might not be able to read a lengthy quiz or might not have the technical know-how to play CD-ROM games. Quick, easily explainable, cozy vignettes like these, on the other hand, can easily keep a child engaged in a way that's friendly, wholesome, and stimulating to a younger mind. I know I may be reading into something completely dumb and minor, but I really do appreciate this one for working around the limitations of its medium to craft something that the target audience might genuinely get something out of, instead of just throwing in some mini games or flash games or puzzles to add a ticker on the back of the box. It's that laser-focused tone that DVD menu games at their peak really excel at. Another excellent laser-focused example can be found in all 3 Lion King DVDs, including the Platinum Edition release of the original, the direct-to-DVD sequel, and the direct-to-DVD midquel, I guess. Each features a unique variation of Timon and Pumbaa's Virtual Safari, which trades out the serene, child-friendly minigames of the Forest Adventure with what is essentially a choose-your-own adventure book in audiovisual form. A fitting shift when you consider that the Lion King series and Timon and Pumbaa as characters are much more draped in comedy and adventure than something as dry as Bambi. A kid picking this DVD off the shelf is going to want to have a silly good time, and all 3 of these are definitely silly good times. On the Platinum Edition, we have the first 2 variations, one traditional safari through the Pride Lands, and one parodying the Jungle Cruise from Disneyland, both hosted by Timon and Pumbaa as you help the 2 navigate the jungle. Every time the vehicle reaches a fork in the path, you get to choose which way to go, leading to a lot of different scenarios and endings depending on which overall route you take. It's not the most interactive thing, but memorizing the best routes does give it a lot of free playability, especially since most of the scenarios are actually hilarious. It's kinda hard to describe without simply listing off jokes, but I love the absurdity of some of these. The safari truck just casually turning into a drive-thru in the middle of the jungle where you then have to help choose what to order. The photo reels at the end where the characters are edited into the chaotic set pieces you just witnessed. The fact that so many of these basically end with you dying.
Well, everyone, thanks for joining us.
My favorite variation is honestly the one on the Lion King 1.5 DVD, as it's not only themed to being an actual theme park ride this time, but it also features the voice work of Julie Kavner and Jerry Stiller as Timon's mother and uncle respectively. I may not remember their characters from the movie that well, this is another one that I haven't seen since childhood, but I will take Marge Simpson and Frank Costanza bouncing off of Timon and Pumbaa any day.
Pumbaa, aren't you gonna finish this pod?
So, Mr. Big Shot Interactive, what do you call this?
Circle of Life.
Beyond the quality of the voice work and the funny theme park humor, I also enjoy this one for how completely off the rails it goes. Literally. Some of the endings have you completing the ride like normal, but some choices have the vehicle fall off track and race through the savannah in a 3D modeled roller coaster ride that has some pretty darn good visuals for the time. It's such a wacky, fun, distinct extra that I recommend checking out if you have either of these movies sitting around in your collection. Especially if you own The Lion King 2, because I couldn't find that one, actually, so yeah, no idea what that Virtual Safari is like, sorry. But if we're talking about DVD menu games that emphasize humor and picking your own ending, then yeah, it's time. Far Far Away Idol is the actual best DVD menu game, don't at me. I'll admit, I kinda struggle with calling this one a DVD menu game per se, as it's basically just a short film included on the DVD with a few alternate endings, but damn it, that's enough for me. For those of you that aren't in the Shrek generation, this one is an American Idol homage but featuring the cast of Shrek 2, as well as the celebrity guest voice of Simon Cowell, who is, of course, on a first-name basis with the entirety of the Shrek cast. I love this because it's completely shameless, like if a kid kid plays this 20 years later with no knowledge of who Simon Cowell is, they'll be so confused.
I will take that as a compliment, princess.
You should,
Simon?
because I rarely give them.
Easy, Simon.
So they just know some guy named Simon? Okay. As one would expect, most of the short is the different characters singing along to songs that were culturally relevant in 2004, with lots of obvious jokes like, Puss in Boots is singing These Boots Are Made for Walkin', Prince Charming is singing I'm Too Sexy, Shrek and Fiona are singing What I Like About You, and literally any other series this would come across as cringy and cynical and how do you do, fellow kids, but in something as irreverent and in your face as the Shrek franchise, it 100% works. The licensed music is already one of the most memorable parts of the series, so the character singing random licensed songs is going to bring the funny. Really, my biggest critique of the short is the usage of the character Boris, who, like in the movie itself, falls into a few transphobic stereotypes. But her role is minor, and at least Shrek and Fiona are supportive. My queer read of the Shrek franchise still holds up, hooray! Once done watching the performances, the player can choose between 10 candidates to help decide the winner. If you vote for Shrek and Fiona, Donkey, or Puss, you view a cute and unique winning animation where they reprise their songs one last time. If you vote for anyone else, Simon vetoes your choice and declares himself the winner.
Now you're being ridiculous. Nope. It's me, everyone!
For what is a man?
It would annoy me that they didn't animate versions for every character, but it's also really funny, so I'll take it. I will fully admit that this is mostly my nostalgia talking, but Far Far Away Idol is awesome because it's a genuine extra that is enhanced by the interactivity of its medium, and I miss stuff like it so much. With these 2004 to 2006 releases behind us, let's talk about a slightly less exciting but still historically important chapter, the Platinum Edition release of Disney's second ever feature film, Pinocchio. Bringing down the scale a bit, this one features Pinocchio's Puzzles, a minigame where you assemble puzzles. Because of the disc-based limitations, you slot in the pieces one at a time in the designated slot, choosing from a selection of shapes that look similar at a distance. It's not the most exciting one, but like the Bambi activities, it's at least engaging enough for kids, and the reward of seeing a 3D model of a toy is pretty nice, I suppose. Nothing to write home about, but once again, nice for the youngin'. The only reason that I'm bringing this up is because Pinocchio was the last Disney film to be released in the Platinum Edition collection, coming to DVD and Blu-ray in early 2009, which means the supplier of the best DVD menu games is now gone, right as online streaming was starting its industry takeover and right as Blu-ray sales exceeded 100 million units. The DVD was about to go extinct, and as was the golden era of the menu game. To preface, DVD menu games did not die out overnight. It's not like when joining a new format, all studios collectively decided to fire that one technical writer who they inappropriately tasked with writing quiz questions for the B-movie. No, studios were going to make their first few Blu-ray releases resemble what audiences were already familiar with, so some of the earlier ones did feature the unique menu games and special features that we've grown accustomed to. However, they may not have died out immediately, but they did die out fast. I could only spot a few Blu-rays in my entire cumulative collection with any sort of games on them, and they are definitely some of the earlier ones too. Starting chronologically, the Cars Blu-ray from back in 2007 has... You can run Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, but not find the cars? Okay, good to see my Stibby money from last year is going to good use. Starting chronologically, the Kung Fu Panda Blu-ray from back in 2008 has the Dragon Warrior Training Academy, a surprisingly thorough collection of minigames that actually showcases the new form factor's added benefits really well, in that these are some of the only menu games I've ever played that actually involve some sort of real-time gameplay. Taking place in the training dojo from the first film, each of these minigames are based off of the respective skills of the Furious 5. For instance, Monkey's minigame requires you to time your jumps with the swinging of chained circles across the path, hopping through as many as you can at once to succeed. Crane's minigame has you catching objects as they fly toward you by pressing a corresponding direction on your remote. Tigress's minigame has you aiming at targets with Tai Lung's face while avoiding targets with your friends' faces, and if you miss or don't hit it in time, you fail. And so on. These are such a fascinating evolution of the menu game, as they closer resemble the CD-ROM stuff that we experienced in the the Scooby-Doo one rather than any of the others that I found today, but it does make sense. The Blu-ray has more storage space, so you can include higher quality models and environments to partake in. The Blu-ray has faster loading times, so you don't have the inherent delayed reactions that a slower DVD might have. Blu-ray players themselves have more up-to-date technology in general, so the line between DVD menu games and actual video games is going to start getting blurred. And that is a problem, because video games are extremely hard to develop. If DVD menu games were to keep getting more elaborate, they'd start taking more and more time and money to develop, and well, their sales were already going down quite a bit. They certainly aren't going to increase their budgets, that's for sure. If you're downsizing your home media department in a new age, then the folks behind the games are going to be the first to go, so it is not at all surprising that this drop-off in quantity was so precipitous, and that even I was only able to find a single Blu-ray with a functioning activity. DVDs had reached the end of their life as a serious form of release, and the fate of the DVD menu game had fully been sealed. New ones were no longer being created, and this type of experience was now not only finite, but shrinking. I mentioned in the intro that even physical media cannot last forever, and that's because every DVD in the world is, at some point in the future, going to not exist. Most CDs have a lifespan of 20 years minimum before they begin to rot, and while Blu-rays have significantly longer lifespans, they also have significantly less market share. This means that every single childhood DVD that you own is going to stop working within your lifetime, whether it be due to built-up scratches, deteriorating plastic, or a plethora of other reasons. And that means, despite my boomerish hand-wringing, companies moving to predominantly digital distribution sources isn't actually 100% bad when it comes to media preservation. Anybody can rip and preserve a Disney Plus original film the moment it goes up, so if the service were to ever disappear one day, 99.9% of the stuff on it will likely persist due to the preservation work of media preserves, enthusiasts, and yes, pirates. Meanwhile, if a piece of physical media gets discontinued, it becomes inherently limited, and preservation efforts rest solely on the whims of however many owners it may have and whatever preservation equipment they may have access to. And that's for the stuff that can be preserved, and DVD menu games, not being based on linear video or game files, certainly can't, which is why I twice pitched the question of if they were worth saving at all. Realistically, my answer would be no. As nostalgic as I am for these, as cute and memorable as many may be, most of them are clearly thrown together without much care or attention, and I wouldn't say that the world would be inherently worse off without them. I'm all for artistic preservation in all of its forms, that even the worst games or movies of all time don't deserve to be lost to the ether. But let's be honest, the best of these are essentially just shorts that can either be recorded or re-uploaded. The ones I praise the most, Far Far Away Idol and Timon and Pumbaa's Virtual Safari, can literally be watched on YouTube, multiple endings and all. So even if a lot of companies across film, music, gaming, and literature don't care much about the long-term preservation of their art, I would still argue that the digital age at least makes unofficial preservation far easier than it's ever been. Sure, something as disposable as the Diary of a Wimpy Kid Disney Plus movie may never get a DVD release, but it is already practically guaranteed to still exist in some digital form as long as computers still exist. It may not be a good movie, but it is at least a significant artistic expression that will not ever become lost media. From a consumer's point of view, DVD menu games being destined to disappear may be sad, but it's at least a sacrifice that enables better access to art in the long term, as long as preservationists and pirates keep up their extremely important work. However, that does not mean that DVD menu games are inherently worthless, and for that you'll have to hear me out. So yes, I admitted that DVD menu games weren't usually that great or worth writing home about. Repurposing assets from a movie or bonus feature to distract kids for 5 minutes isn't exactly a high-effort gig worth preserving for future generations to see, I get it. I will also admit that yes, even media at the time of DVDs was super disposable. One of the movies that I touched upon is literally called The Lion King 1.5. And yes, it's silly to act like DVDs no longer having trivia games is what's causing the death of cinema. That's the MCU. Joke. That was a joke, not a serious. Please laugh, I liked No Way Home. However, I also want to point out that kids from any generation are naturally going to want to immerse themselves into a movie they love beyond merely watching it over and over. Whether that means researching behind the scenes stuff, playing flash games on the official website, or watching Far Far Away Idol over and over until you see all of the endings. That kind of supporting material hasn't entirely disappeared. Just checking the App Store now, there's still tie-in games for stuff stuff like Ice Age, How to Train Your Dragon, and Jurassic World, but these are all heavily designed around monetization, whaling money from a target audience of toddlers to make the game actually work as intended. I guess kids can go onto YouTube, but most know by now that the YouTube Kids app is kind of a cesspit, especially when you search for popular characters like Elsa or Spider-Man. Heck, even browser games have become significantly less common since the death of Flash wiped most of them off of the internet, and I did an entire video about how console license games have mostly fizzled out. Back in the day though, DVD menu games were unique because they were a genuine bonus. Nobody bought these for the games, but them being there at all gave kids an outlet to further immerse themselves in an interest without having to pay extra for toys, books, games, or apps. And it's a shame that stuff like that is becoming increasingly rare. I'm not saying that Disney or DreamWorks used to be altruistic philanthropists who would never dare monetize their art. That is most definitely not the case, but something like the Bambi DVD menu game would at least engage a young child with something that is family-friendly, collaborative, and kinda sorta educational. At least something like Timon and Pumbaa's Virtual Safari would be a hilarious audition that gives you more to do after finishing the movie. Now that streaming has, well, streamlined everything, we don't really get that kind of stuff at all anymore. I'm not saying that we need to bring back stuff like the Snow White trivia game, but I wish there were at least some aspects of the artistic landscape that weren't monetized now more than ever before. DVD menu games were dumb and rudimentary, and it's definitely a good thing that art is now more accessible than ever in the digital age, but going back to some of these did make me long for a simpler time, both in the nostalgic, oh god I miss my childhood way, and in the, oh god I hate how entertainment has become content rather than art way. And I do think there's some value in that, as humble as it may be. Now that I think about it, maybe this was a communist diatribe. Might as well comment. The bourgeoisie cannot exist without constantly revolutionizing the instruments of production and thereby the relations of production and with them the relations of the whole society. Thanks, Alvin and the Chipmunks! You wouldn't steal a car. You wouldn't steal a handbag. You wouldn't steal a television. You wouldn't watch a Jenny Geist video without donating to her Patreon. Or you can, it's not really that big of a deal. In fact, liking and sharing are also extremely helpful to me. Be sure to comment below with your favorite childhood DVD menu games to give me engagement, and while you're here, I do have a Patreon. Ahem. So, for as low as $3 to $5 a month, you can get an incredible set of perks, including early access to new videos, your name listed in the credits, monthly behind-the-scenes blog posts, and an exclusive Discord server. The more support I get, the more time I can dedicate to the channel to make in-depth video essays like these, so be sure to click the link in the description below or go to patreon.com/JennyGeist. Today I'll be giving a shout out to my patrons at the producer tier and above, those being Ace L, Fusefall, Kitty Kongfax, Oski, Sarah Richfield, Simon Welsh, and Vincent Coates. You are all the best. With all that said, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all later.